Ever find yourself, like, just about to do that thing you know you shouldn't? And there's that tiny little warning flicker. What if we could crank up the volume on that warning, make the immediate result of slipping up just a bit? How uncomfortable.
The flicker is spot on. And yeah, you've really hit on something important there. Today we're diving into how making those bad habits feel bad, like right away, can actually be a really potent way to shift things.
Exactly. So this deep dive is all about accountability partners and these things called habit contracts. Basically, practical ways to make doing the wrong thing less attractive, in the moment. We've been looking at some really interesting ideas about this, kind of flipping the usual advice on its head instead of just focusing on making good habits rewarding.
We focus on making the bad ones unsatisfying. And what's great, I think, is how tangible this is. We're getting away from just like vague goals. It taps into something immediate. So for you listening, this means getting your hands on some actual usable strategies, ways to fight those habits you want to ditch and really lock in the good ones. You're trying to cut through the noise,
Yep.
Focus on what actually works right here, right now.
Okay, so let's get into it. This idea of making bad habits immediately unsatisfying. Like we said, it's the flip side of making good habits feel good instantly. What's the basic thinking behind why this works, psychologically?
Well, fundamentally, our brains are just wired to learn from what happens right now. It's simple feedback, isn't it? Like you touch something hot, the pain is immediate, and bam, your brain makes a strong connection. Avoid that. That kind of direct feedback loop is incredibly strong. It often just bypasses all the logical long-term thinking that, let's face it, gets easily steamrolled by the immediate buzz of a bad habit.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And the sources we looked at had some great um, real-world examples of this. Like, think about a plumber worrying about getting bad online reviews, that potential immediate hit to their business. That's a strong motivator.
Absolutely. Or a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
If the food's bad tonight, people might not come back tomorrow. It's a direct consequence. That connection to their livelihood, it really pushes them to keep standards up, even in, super high-stakes jobs like surgery.
Mm.
The immediate, potentially devastating consequences of a mistake are a huge driver for being careful, for being skilled.
Hmm. So it's not just that something bad might happen eventually, it's the speed and the felt impact right away that guides what we do now.
Precisely. And that immediacy is just crucial because, let's be honest, bad habits usually give us something good right away. Comfort, relief, whatever. Even if we know the long-term price is high, that immediate payoff is really tempting. So the whole game here is to speed up the punishment, basically. Yeah. Make the ouch happen much closer to the action you want to stop.
Right. And we see this everywhere, don't we? Like, the material mentioned late fees on bills. People are way more likely to pay on time if there's that immediate financial sting.
Yeah, exactly.
Or students showing up to class when their grade depends directly on attendance. Again, a fairly quick consequence.
Uh-huh. It shows we're actually quite motivated to avoid even small immediate pains or costs. But, and this is important, the punishment has to sort of match the crime. The consequence needs to be strong enough for the habit you're fighting. Like
Yeah.
a tiny slap on the wrist for a really ingrained habit. Probably not going to do much.
So yeah, a $5 fine for something major isn't going to cut it. The examples, like fines for smoking where you shouldn't or not recycling, they suggest the consequence needs to be noticeable. And crucially, you have to actually expect it to happen if you mess up. It needs to be reliable.
And the kind of consequence matters too. Things that are, local, they hit you directly, tangible, concrete, and immediate. Much more powerful for changing your behavior. Compare that to consequences that are kind of global, abstract, vague, far off in the future. Those just don't have the same punch for our day-to-day choices.
Which brings us nicely to this tool. The habit contract seems like a really straightforward way to build in that immediate, tangible cost we're talking about.
Yes, exactly. The habit contract basically just formalizes this whole idea in a structured way. The source material uses seatbelt laws as a great analogy, like a big societal habit contract. Adding fines and social pressure fundamentally change behavior. The numbers are pretty staggering, actually. Like 14% usage back in '84 jumps to over 88% by 2016. That's laws and social norms working together.
Wow, that is a massive change. And so a personal habit contract tries to do that just for you, right? Like your own little law with penalties.
That's a good way to put it. So an agreement could be written, could be verbal, where you spell out, here's the habit and here's exactly what happens, the punishment, if I don't stick to it. And a really key piece is getting accountability partners involved, people who witness it, agree to it with you.
Yeah, the material gave that really detailed example of Brian Harris. Can you walk us through how his contract worked? It seemed pretty intense.
Sure. So Brian wanted to get his eating habits sorted out. Feel better, hit a fitness goal, 200 pounds, 10% body fat. His first contract for Q1 of 2017 was clear. Start eating right again. He
Mhm.
broke it down into phases, slow carb first, then tracking macros and tweaking
And he
things.
got really specific about the daily actions, didn't he? Like logging all his food, weighing himself every single day, no wiggle room.
Exactly. And then the kicker,
Right.
the consequences. If he missed even one day of logging food or weighing in, the initial punishment was dress up. Like full work clothes, shirt and trousers, even on a Saturday morning for the rest of that quarter. No jeans, no t-shirts. And pays trainer 200 bucks.
Ouch. Those are definitely immediate and not fun consequences. And they mentioned the act of actually signing it with his wife and trainer was important.
Yeah, he apparently found that if he skipped that formal signing step, his commitment just kind of fizzled out almost right away. It adds this psychological weight, more than just telling yourself you'd do it. And the stakes got higher later on. In other quarters, missing carb or protein targets meant paying the trainer, forgetting to weigh in. That cost him $500 paid to his wife.
Whoa. And the one for skipping sprints really stood out to me, dressing up and wearing a hat for the rival football team. That's hitting him where it hurts, socially.
It's a perfect example, isn't it?
Right.
Making the consequence really personal, maybe even a bit embarrassing, that cranks up the motivation. And yeah, the source says this whole strategy with his wife and trainer keeping him honest worked really well for him.
So, okay, maybe a full-blown signed contract feels like a lot for some people, but just having an accountability partner, that core idea seems valuable on its own. How does that work, simply?
Well, the source mentioned Margaret Cho, the comedian. She did a song-a-day challenge with a friend. It wasn't some complex contract. They just checked in, made sure the other person was doing it. The power there is just knowing someone else is watching, basically. It creates this immediate, maybe subtle cost if you flake. You don't want to disappoint them or look lazy or untrustworthy. That little bit of social pressure.
Right, it's tapping into that basic human thing. We care what people think. We don't want to let others down. That feeling becomes the immediate unpleasantness if we think about slacking off.
Exactly. It goes beyond just promises you make to yourself. It's about promises, even informal ones, you make to someone else. There was even that cool tech example with Thomas Frank setting up an automatic tweet if he hits snooze too many times, offering to PayPal followers.
Ah, that's clever. Using that desire to look good, to not look like you failed publicly, it makes sense. We naturally care about how we appear. We comb our hair, try to do well at work or school. So having someone else involved or setting up a system like that just leverages that natural tendency.
So, yeah, if we pull all this together from our deep dive, the main takeaway is we're less likely to do a bad habit if we engineer some kind of immediate negative feeling right after it, make it unsatisfying right then and there.
And accountability partners are a key way to do that. They bring in that immediate social cost. Just knowing someone else is aware that you might let them down, that's powerful stuff.
Uh-huh. And then habit contracts just take that a step further. They make it more formal, often more public, laying out clear penalties. It raises the psychological stakes of breaking your word. Ultimately, that feeling that someone else is watching, expecting you to follow through, that can be a huge motivator for change.
So the big idea for you listening is this. If you want to break a bad habit, think about deliberately adding some kind of immediate, unsatisfying consequence. Whether it's through finding someone to be accountable to or setting up a more formal habit contract, it can be a really effective approach.
Which leads to a final thought for you to chew on. Think about one habit you'd really like to change. What's one immediate consequence, maybe just slightly uncomfortable, you could attach to it starting right now? And who could be that person? Your accountability partner to share this with. Just shifting your focus from the distant future to the immediate impact. That might be the missing piece for you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into making bad habits unsatisfying. Hope you picked up some useful ideas.